The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. The 72 disciples returned, rejoicing, and said to Jesus, "Lord, even the demons are subject to us because of your name." Jesus said, "I have observed Satan fall like lightning from the sky. Behold, I have given you the power to tread upon serpents and scorpions and upon the full force of the enemy, and nothing will harm you. Nevertheless, do not rejoice because the spirits are subject to you, but rejoice because your names are written in heaven." At that very moment, he rejoiced in the Holy Spirit and said, "I give you praise, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, for although you have hidden these things from the wise and the learned, you have revealed them to the childlike. Yes, Father, such has been your gracious will. All things have been handed over to me by my Father. No one knows the Son, who the Son is, except the Father, and anyone to whom the Father, and who the Father is, except the Son, and anyone to whom the Son wishes to reveal him." Turning to the disciples in private, he said, "Blessed are the eyes that see what you see. For I say to you, many prophets and kings desired to see what you see, but did not see it, and to hear what you hear, but did not hear it." The Gospel of the Lord. So, Blessed Francis Xavier Seelos, or Seelos. His last name is S-E-E-L-O-S. In German, that would definitely be Seelos, but who knows how the Americans might want to pronounce it. At any rate, he was a Redemptorist priest, comes from Germany, and at a very young age, he was sent to the United States to be ordained in the United States. At that time, the United States was still very much considered missionary territory, and the Redemptorists were very active among them. One of the reasons why the United States was still considered missionary territory was at that time, although religious liberty had been enshrined in our Constitution, in practice this was very much an Anglo-Protestant stronghold. And anybody who was not an Anglo-Protestant was in some way or other regarded as a second-class citizen. Not necessarily active persecution, as we see in so many areas of the world today, but definitely discrimination and a lot of anti-Catholicism regarding the way that people dealt with one another. He was a very bright but also very holy young man. He was a protege and assigned at first to work with Saint John Neumann, who was also a German priest here who became bishop, Archbishop, I believe, of Baltimore. At any rate, he was very bright. He was assigned to a very number of parishes and was also in the formation work for the Redemptorist Seminary. And eventually he became the rector, the president of that Redemptorist Seminary in near Annapolis, Maryland. Two interesting points at that. One of which was he was considered strongly as a candidate for becoming the Bishop of Pittsburgh. But his name, unbeknownst to him, was removed from the list of candidates that were presented to Rome simply because he was German, and the Irish Catholics in the United States did not want to see the German Catholics get too much power. So already there was a little infighting and discrimination there, wasn't there? So he also, at the beginning of the Civil War, this was in 1860, the seminarians he was in charge of were in danger of being drafted into the Union Army. Priests were exempt. Seminarians were not exempt. He personally went to President Lincoln and requested that Catholic seminarians be exempt from having to serve in the Union Army. He was denied. So he went back home and had his bishop immediately ordain all of the seminarians to the priesthood so that they could continue their studies and complete their studies as priests rather than seminarians. A rather good solution to that, I think. He was eventually moved to Detroit for a few months, a short time, and then to New Orleans, Louisiana, which is actually where his shrine is today. After 2 years in New Orleans, he succumbed to yellow fever while he was ministering to the sick there. And at age 49, or 47, I believe, he died in 1867. So he's not well known, but his mentor, Bishop St. John Neumann, said of him that while John Neumann may be more scholarly, he certainly is more holy. And so in the year 2000, Pope John Paul II canonized him as a priest. In many ways, I think he is an ideal model for a diocesan priest, for any priest, and perhaps an ideal model for all of us, especially right now, because what he obviously lived was the Jesuit model, really, to find God in all things, in all circumstances. And he certainly was buffeted a lot by changes and problems within the church, within the country at that time, and yet wherever he found himself in obedience, he bloomed quickly where he was planted. He didn't stay that long in any one place, maybe 5 years at most, because of the circumstances of his ministry and his life. But wherever he was, he very quickly made a difference by his direct contact with the people of God there. And I think for us, he's a good intercessor. We should pray for his intercession for our times now, but he was also a very good model. Bloom where you are planted.